Philip and Alice Shabakoff, authors of Poisoned Prophets, The Toxic Assault on Our Children. They say the typical home sweet home is, for children, more like a house of horrors.
Babies are not little adults. They are much more vulnerable to these pesticides and other toxic substances than we are.
There is chemical flame retardant in the baby's mattress, formaldehyde in the carpeting, plastic softeners in the teething ring, a fluorocarbon stain treatment on the sofa, bisphenol A in the baby bottle. But can tiny amounts of these chemicals really cause harm?
You know, sometimes I think when we look at people's fear of these invisible chemicals, these trace levels of chemicals, you can't see them, you don't understand them, sometimes you can't even pronounce them, that this becomes like a psychiatric issue. It's not rational.
Elizabeth Whelan is a physician with the American Council on Science and Health, an advocacy group which tends to take positions favorable to industry. Whelan believes Poisoned Prophets trades on misplaced fears.
You shouldn't be worrying about giving your baby a sippy cup, a plastic sippy cup, or drinking out of a plastic bottle. What you should be concerned about is whether your child is wearing a seatbelt in the car, has a child safety seat, wears a helmet while biking, and the things that really, really matter.
Still, when a national survey of infants' cord blood reveals the presence of hundreds of synthetic chemicals, it can't help but raise questions.
DDT,
PCBs, rocket fuel, dozens of different kinds of pesticides, all of the materials that are used to make plastic. Those are some of them that were found in the umbilical cords.
PCBs, a chemical that's been banned for 30 years, shows up in cord blood.
Richard Clapp of Boston University thinks we should be troubled by the persistence of synthetic chemicals in the environment and in our bodies.
And the higher the PCB levels in their cord blood, the lower their IQ compared to other kids. And this is recent. This is in the last 10 or 15 years, 20 years after the banning of this chemical.
So this stuff doesn't just go away. There is no away.
Martha Herbert of Mass General says the dangers of many chemicals reveal themselves only slowly.
Just because you accomplish a process and you don't kill off your first set of mice immediately in some short-term lab test, it doesn't mean that there are no consequences.
Take phthalates, chemicals used to soften plastics. Deemed safe by initial testing, evidence has mounted over the years that phthalates are endocrine disruptors, confusing the body's hormonal system.
Phthalates have now been implicated in falling sperm counts, the rise of early onset puberty, as well as male reproductive deformities.
I think that's really creepy. And this is one of the examples of something at a very low dose having an impact that we would never have dreamed, because it's not poison. It's a signaling sabotage. It sabotages your own internal regulation.
Now, if you look at the literature on phthalates, you'll find that they have been studied intensely, and that the only evidence against them is based on laboratory rodent data at very high dose. This has nothing to do with human exposure.
Elizabeth Whelan says the dangers of phthalates remain unproven and fears unfounded.
People have long projected their anxieties and their fears onto potentially hostile agents in the environment, again, invisible ones. That's a very important principle, and I think it's very much in operation here.
I think most trace chemicals are just that. They're found in traces.
Robert Barretts says it's helpful to remember the reason these new compounds exist, because society demands them.
We want cars that don't rust. We want computer cases that won't break. We want fast laptops, and we want eyeglasses that have graduated lenses and things. We have to have materials that are capable of producing those effects. The real issue is are any of these significant, important medically in terms of causing harm? In other words, you can find traces of many things in the environment, but most of them don't cause problems. We are never going to live in a world where there is nothing.
Now, Martha Herbert, the Mass General neurologist, says that only about 20 to 30 of the top 3,000 chemicals have been screened to see what their impact is on the nervous system. And she thinks that should make all of us nervous.
It already has. The show has already made me nervous about it. The asthma epidemic plus a backyard danger zone. When Chronicle continues.